All right. Welcome, everyone, to Soulful Marketing for the Visionary Healer. Really excited to have you all here. It's cool to be doing this by video. A lot of times when I teach over audio. So it's fun to be able to be live and present with you all. And we have some more people showing up and popping in. I imagine we'll see more people popping in the next 5 minutes, just arriving on the call. So first of all, I just want to welcome you because obviously if you showed up here and you're present, then you're probably doing some unique work or you have some unique work to bring into the world. And maybe it's not so easy to describe and maybe it's not so easy to bring into a context that you can really share with the public that, the more the mainstream can understand. So I just want to acknowledge you for being here and for whatever it is that you have that's pouring through you or that you have to bring forth into the world. I want to honor the sacredness of that. And I want to share a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about today, and a little bit about the intention and the reason for why I created this. So when I first started working as a healer, an energy healer, I really didn't know how to describe my work. And I felt kind of at a loss for how to present it in a way that people really understood. And I had this whole inner turmoil going on, and maybe some of you can relate to that, where I really, really wanted to share it, but I was also scared to share it. I was afraid of being judged. There was a lot of fear of visibility, of getting my work out there, getting my message out there. But even beyond that, I had this kind of resistance to business and marketing, and I was like, I didn't want to do it, and I didn't want to be put into a box, and I didn't want to override my own values, right, my own wisdom. And so I kind of set out on a mission to learn how to do business and marketing in a way that felt really genuine, in a way that felt generous, that felt full of heart. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And along the way, I've been teaching other students and clients to do the same. And what I have found to be true is that we have a huge capacity, and within that capacity, the ability to serve many, many, many people. And if you're sort of a mission-driven person, you get that. Maybe you feel that there's this huge capacity and potential inside of you. And oftentimes there can be this ache, or this disconnection for not expressing it to the fullest, and also a fear around not expressing it to the fullest and a desire to express it. So to me, that's what I'm here for today, is to offer you some tools, to offer you some mindset shifts, some insights, some stories, to help you really reframe your relationship to your work and how you're expressing it, which really, to me, is the core basis of marketing. So I have to just kind of admit something, and that is that I actually love marketing. I've come to love it. And part of that is because I really understand that what marketing is it's simply just the place of connection where information and potential is communicated. And when that information and that potential is transformational, it's healing, it's inspiring, it's hopeful, it's valuable to a certain population to help them to elevate their consciousness, then what we have by using the tool of marketing is an incredible opportunity. And it's understandable that many spiritual people have been really turned off by marketing. Doesn't even matter if you're spiritual. Many people have been turned off by marketing, mostly because it's been used to manipulate. It's been used to extract wealth and energy and resources from people. It's been used to create economic disparity. It's been used to play off of women's fears about not being enough. It's been used in all of these really yucky ways. And so it's very understandable that there's been, a resistance to embracing and learning how to use it in a way that actually is generous and good. The premise for how I work and how I teach is that marketing is really just about developing connection with people, and it's about education. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about those two parts, about relationship marketing, about educational marketing, and about the energetics of soulful marketing. As well, I'm going to give you a little bit of strategy and kind of things that you can begin to implement into your world, into your work, even this week, and start to see some changes. So my belief is that there is a living and breathing consciousness. You can call it your vision, you can call it your dream, you can call it your purpose or your business, or you can call it your higher potential, whatever you want to call it. But there is a body of work that lives within you that only you can bring into the world. It's not anyone else's, and it's not for anyone else to bring into the world. And in fact, no one else can do it as successfully as you can, in the way that you can, with the life that you've lived, with your own kind of particular energetic signature of who you are. And when you can come into clear relationship with this consciousness that wants to move through you, and when you can commit yourself to being a steward of it, to understanding it, to understanding how is the best way to express it so that other people can understand it on multiple different levels. They can understand intellectually what you're offering. They can understand, they have a resonance with it. How do you create that? And that's what we're here to talk about. But what I want to emphasize is that when you do cultivate this relationship in such a way that brings the full essence and the energy of what you're here to bring forth, and it brings it through in a way that you can communicate about it, you can articulate it clearly, you're in congruence with it, what happens is there's a level of flow and ease. And I think that you can all probably think back to a time in your life where things were just clicking, things were just moving, doors were kind of opening for you. And this is the approach that I take to business and marketing, is cultivating, actually consciously cultivating that space within you where there is a natural and organic flow and expression that is connecting with other people, that's translating into, maybe it's speaking opportunities, the right people coming out of the woodwork in the right moment to help support you in your work. Maybe it's that client that somehow gets referred to you from someone through some connection you had way back and when, a person in high school, and it's just they are so perfectly aligned to receive what you have to offer them. And you get to feel the joy of knowing that your divine gifts, like what you came here to bring, that there's a person there that was actually absolutely meant to receive them. So that's the kind of internal alignment that is really at the core of soulful marketing. It's really getting in touch with what is it that you are being asked to create, that you were being called to create, and then how do you bring that into clear, concise, organized form so that you're communicating it about it in a way that actually increases its potency, that people can really understand and connect to. And when we start connecting to this place, I think what happens for many people is they come into that space of clarity. They come into that space of witnessing their true power and essence. Maybe you even had a vision that was shown to you. And oftentimes after that, what happens is a lot of fear, a lot of gremlins. And we can go into this experience of waxing and waning in our connection, in our ability to connect with this clarity, with this state of flow, with this state of inspiration, with this state of, I know exactly what I'm here to do. I got the workshop. I know how I'm going to write it. Like, I sat down and I wrote the copy for the workshop, and like, it just all came out in like a half an hour. You know, that's the state of alignment that we look to cultivate. And one thing that I know after doing this work with many dozens of Reiki energy healers, yoga teachers, acupuncturists, therapists, like every kind of alternative transformational practitioner and healer you can imagine, is that in order to maintain that connection, we need community. We need people to hold us in reflection when we lose sight. We also need that community to have a sense of belonging. Because when we're bringing unique work into the world, we're bringing sacred work into the world that is not necessarily validated by the current paradigm, although it's needed and it's asked for by many. When we're bringing that work forth, it feels like trailblazing. It feels like leaving the safety of our comfort zone. It feels like, you know, what if people don't get it? What if people don't like me? What if all this stuff, you know, all these fears and blocks come up and they show their face in a million different ways. And those ways sometimes become believable to us. And so what I found is that, you know, being in a supportive container, showing up for things like this, being able to really be validated along your path so that other people can reflect back to you what your gifts are, what your message is, what your wisdom is when you've maybe lost track, you know, is crucial to staying in connection to that greater flow. That's one of the ways that we cultivate it. So when we have cultivated that connection, that clarity, that confidence from an inner inside space, that's really the foundation of all effective marketing. How many of you have ever decided you were going to create like a workshop or some kind of an offering to the public, and then it just kind of like it didn't land, or only a couple people showed up? There's always a few different things that are going on with that, and often it's that the message isn't clear, so there isn't like total resonance happening. Or it's not clear enough that other people can really understand what it is about and why they would want to show up for it. There's your own internal resistance, your own beliefs, you know, self-sabotaging behavior that comes up sometimes. But what I want to focus on today is what causes people to say yes. What causes people to say yes to your workshops, yes to your projects, yes to your one-on-one services, yes to whatever the form is of what you're bringing forth into the world? What causes people to say yes? How do you position? How do you create context around your work, and how do you position it? And there's two things. One is the subtle resonance. And I look at that resonance on two different levels. There's the resonance that you have within your own connection to your own work. So are you energetically aligned with your deeper purpose as you're expressing this work? Or, you know, have you somehow diluted it, or have you somehow dumbed it down, or have you somehow like bent the message off to the left or to the right, and it's not really quite like, are you somehow kind of avoiding the actual thing that you really want to say, the actual powerful message that you really want to say? And that's really, really common because we're oftentimes afraid of our power. So the resistance, the fear can come up as a lack of clarity, and that lack of clarity comes in as a lack of resonance, and other people feel that. Other people feel a lack of resonance, and they want your deeper power. They want to feel your authentic truth, your authentic message, and your deeper power coming through. And that's what's going to make you stand out from all the other people who are doing similar work as you. And that's the only thing that's going to have you stand out. And that's what's going to create magnetism. The other piece that's really, really important, because it's not just about energetic alignment and resonance and purpose embodiment, although that's a big part of what I teach and that's a big part of what I work with my clients on. It's also about creating a context for your work that other people can really relate to. And what that has to do is speaking to the mental layers of your potential audiences. This has to do with speaking in terms and in language that the people that you're wanting to serve, that you're wanting to attract and draw in, can relate to. And so what makes work relatable? So I want to break this down into a few different parts. And the first one is I really want to talk about modalities. Whatever the tool is that you're offering, whether you're an Ayurvedic practitioner or you're an energy healer or you're a yoga teacher, like whatever your tools are, people do not really connect to your tools. They don't really want to buy your tools. And there's this disconnect that often happens, and I see this a lot with healers, where they might have on their website multiple listings for all the different tools they have, like schedule a Reiki session with me, or schedule a spiritual intuitive coaching session, or you can schedule a health coaching session. And the thing is that at its face, like, people don't really give a shit whether it's Reiki or it's health coaching or it's spiritual guidance. They really just want to know, like, can you help me with the problem that I have? They really just want to know, can you help me with the problem that I have? And so when you look at how you're presenting your work, it's really important to connect to an experience that your potential client is having. And really, instead of talking about, I have this modality and this is how this modality works, and this is the philosophy of this modality, and yada, yada, yada. Many healers have branded their work around their modality. And I have to say that it's a pretty common mistake. It's also a pretty outdated way of doing your business. And unfortunately, a lot of the places that certify healers in different modalities teach them to lead with their modality because they want to promote that work. So for example, if you were trained in the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, and then they might teach you, as you go into being a practitioner, then you want to present yourself as, I'm a certified Barbara Brennan School of Healing practitioner, right? Because that's them marketing their work, but it's not going to help you market your work, unless, of course, it's a very well-recognized brand that gives you a reputation, right? But if it's something that's sort of obscure, like I'm a matrix energetics practitioner, it's like people don't always know what that is. They don't know what it is and they can't connect to it. So there's this place where we have to really look at how we're presenting our work, and really, instead of leading with, this is the tool that I have, leading with, this is what I can help you with. And what this requires is, it requires basically taking a deep dive into the conversation around niche. And I'm sure you've heard it before, that you need to have a niche for your work. And a niche is basically a target audience, in plain businessy terms, but it's a person that you are, it's basically identifying, who do you work with? What's the problem you solve? And oftentimes when I see a lot of healers, they first start getting business coaching support, and sort of kind of the first layer of sort of understanding, okay, how do I do this business thing? Like, how do I start to attract clients, etc.? Oh, I need a niche. Okay, I will pick a niche. And they often pick a niche that is not really fully resonant with their work, and it almost dilutes their work a little bit, but they just keep getting told over and over again, you need to pick a niche, you need to pick a niche. And I want to say that I've talked about this a lot, and it's not such a simple cut and dry thing, because If you cannot communicate who your work is for and what it's about and what problem it solves, like what are the potential results and benefits and outcomes of working with you, then it's really hard for anyone to decide that they are going to pay you if they can't really understand from a mental space, oh, the tools that you have will help me with my fill in the blank, whatever problem it is. However, I think that the way that niche or niche is often taught is really oversimplified because, again, there's a unique essence, there's a unique energy, and there's a living consciousness of a body of work that wants to move through you and be born through you and come into structure and form. And if you try to take that and just stuff it into a niche box, it's going to be diluted. You're going to lose connection to your creative inspiration. You're going to lose connection to that big driving force inside of you, or your inner calling, like what your heart really knows you're here to say. And at the same time, if you totally resist the niching process and you're like, my work can help everyone, and you kind of refuse to give your work a context that people can relate to, then you're also not going to be doing very well. And maybe you can generate some clients, but when it comes to leveraging and actually creating a level of financial sustainability that can serve you over the long term and help you give back to your retirement and all that stuff, it's going to be really hard to get that level of leverage. So what I suggest and what I teach my clients is to really understand this, that there's a continuum, and for each body of work, there's a continuum of how specific and narrow or how wide the message becomes. But for many of you, there's this feeling of, yeah, my work is so dynamic, it's so multifaceted that there's just no way to put it into a box. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a way to bring it into a level of cohesive form that has an integrated level of resonance. So I want to give you a couple of examples of that. I had a client that I worked with a couple of years ago, and very expansive, really big visionary. He had a lot of ideas. It was really hard to rein those ideas down into something that was clear enough that that it really would sort of maintain the power and the essence of what he was offering. And the conversation that he was having around his work was first like, well, I help people create presence. And it was like, like we all know that presence is powerful, but it just wasn't very relatable, because people were dealing with a lot in their lives. They were dealing with feeling strung out and tired, and their kids getting sick, and like real specific things were happening in their lives. And he was like, I help you create more presence. And it was really just like, it was hard to really connect to. And, we did a lot of excavating, and we did a lot of digging deep down into like really what was his work really about, to the point where he could really get his ego out of the way and hear the deeper message and the essence and the voice of that work and what really wanted to come through. And what he ended up landing on was more of a story about breaking free. And it was a story about how we're just so caught up in the daily grind of our lives, and that there was this deeper potential that was wanting to come through. And how could we let that pressure build and actually let ourselves break free in our expression? So it turned out to be really about creating space, creating presence and space, and cultivating creativity. Now, if you look at that message, is it niched? Does it really describe a certain specific set of people, like single moms or professionals who are looking for new careers? Or, no, it doesn't. And if I had tried to take his vision and bring it into a very small niche box, it wouldn't have worked. In fact, it didn't work many times. And that's how we kind of were able to forge this larger scoped message. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that soulful marketing and aligning with the capacity to express your work in a way that's authentic, that's powerful, that's resonant, that gets people's attention is not about the bigger message, nor is it about the smaller niche. It's about actually finding the relationship between the bigger message and then how that translates into the more nuanced conversations that people are having. So this is basically an example of how are you finding the deeper core message of your work and how that can create resonance and cohesiveness. And then from there, you can develop singular offerings that are a little more specific to particular people's needs. So his background, he had a very rich background in coaching, in nature mentorship. He brought so many different tools to his work. But what was really powerful and engaging about his work was that he was speaking to a larger thread of consciousness. He was speaking to a state of mind, a state of being in the collective, which is there's something deeper that wants to emerge and you need to break free. You need to break free out of the cages that you've created for yourself in the mundane daily life, and he was leading with that. And it was really, really powerful. So this kind of brings me back to the question of like, what really makes something land powerfully? And what makes marketing and messaging land really powerfully is when you speak to people's direct experience. And the capacity and the ability to do that basically rests on you getting out of your ideas about what your work is about and really releasing a lot of ego around it. So a lot of times I see people be like, my work is about this, and this is how I'm gonna, this is how I'm gonna share it. And this is my, and the thing is that the perfect resonant messaging comes when you honor that deeper message that wants to come through you, but you're also really listening really deeply for what people are really needing. What are they really struggling with? What are they sharing with you? What's coming up in your client sessions? What did your best friend call you about last week and say, like, I really need to talk because I'm having this issue? What are those issues and what's the emotional tone around them? And that's a way that you can begin to transcend some of the generic boxes that a regular niching process would take you through. If you feel like your work is more expansive, more dynamic, you can still create a context and relevance for that work. So I'm going to give you another example of kind of moving beyond modalities and into a more resonant message. A client that I'm actually currently working with, her business was called Healing with Compassion, and she was presenting it as grief coaching and Reiki. So grief coaching and Reiki, two separate modalities, healing with compassion. The energy and the essence is there. It does feel resonant with her message, but it's kind of like a little bit not that powerful for me to connect to. And I put myself in the place, I'm like, healing with compassion. I'm like, healing what exactly? Like, I don't really even know. And then grief is kind of like, well, grief about what? It doesn't quite have that nitty gritty, nuanced, I think I'm a real visual person and I think a lot about texture. And you're like, texture, what? But like when it comes to your messaging and the wording you use, the more nuanced and the more detailed that you can get about exactly what that experience of grief is and why is healing with compassion. Like we just go deeper and deeper into that. The more like texture and like detail that you can express in your work about the specificity, the more things will be able to stick like Velcro. And the more really super broad and super general and generic, the more diffuse it becomes and the difficult it is for people to connect to. And the approach that I take with my clients is to have a little bit of both. So you have that bigger, more expansive message, and then you bring it into terms, into concrete terms that people can really relate to. So here's an example. Working with this client, we really talked about her story, and her story was a really phenomenal one in which she lost her son and then also lost her husband. And So the grief, the healing and the grief that she's talking about is really about when you lose someone who is so close to you that they take a part of you with them. And how do you even face the world again with that level of grief? And how do you come back to a place of wholeness? And how do you come back to a place of being able to even enjoy your life again? And a big piece of her work is about reestablishing her client's connection to that departed soul. So that's like a whole other incredible conversation to be having. That's a whole different story that speaks to a person's experience. Because if you can put yourself in the shoes of someone who has just gone through incredible loss, what do they want more than anything else is to feel some sense of connection with the person that they've lost. So that being the foundation and basis of her work really lands. It really lands really powerfully. It lands a lot more powerfully than grief coaching and Reiki, which doesn't really tell me a whole lot. It's hard for me to really relate to. I'm going to give you another example of another client who, her modalities, her tools, some of her tools, although she's got many, are energy healing and yoga. So she's enrolled a few clients into energy healing sessions, and she's done some, teaches some yoga classes and probably has some private yoga students. But when we try to really look into kind of what was the deeper work really about, and we started really going into her story and talking about what she had been through and how it all kind of ties together. What we found was that her life had caused her many times to leave the safety and comfort of a job, a marriage, all the constructs of the things that we think keep us safe. She had left behind to go reinvent herself and create a new life because she knew that that's what she needed to do to be happy and to be fulfilled. And she had done this so many times in her life that her work was not just about energy healing and yoga. Her work and the wisdom that she really had to bring through was really about how do you create resilience and how do you support yourself as you're navigating deep turmoil and transformational change and upheaval in your life. And the premise of her work is we're all waking up. We're all waking up and we're looking around and saying, my life it's not going to work the way it is. And I have to make big, scary changes. So how do you take the leap when the old forms are starting to fall away? And how do you continue to move forward into the unknown in spite of your fears when the source of your security and all of your identities are melting away? Right? So that's a much more compelling story. And as she's begun to integrate this message and this theme and really embody it and be able to speak to it, she's starting to see more energy come back into her business in the way of students and clients. And it's really beautiful to witness. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about finding that connection between the resonance internally within yourself with who your life has caused you to be and what you're really here to offer that goes far beyond your modalities. And then how do you bring that into a context that is very relatable to other people? So I'm going to invite you all to, if you can, take out a piece of paper and a pen. And we're going to do just a short reflective writing exercise. So if you're able to, take out a piece of paper and a pen or open up a document on your computer. You'll be able to listen to this again later if you need to, and you probably will want to because I'm throwing a lot in your direction. So just close your eyes for a minute. Join me in closing your eyes if that feels welcoming to you. Just take a couple of deep breaths. And I just invite you to really open up in curiosity, not trying to figure it out, not trying to find the answers, but just if you can turn your little feelers, your little sensors, however you imagine that, into a receiving place, just listening. There are things that you have been through in your life. There are many stories that you've lived. There are things that you've overcome. But underneath all of that, there's this divine wisdom that you connect to. It's almost as if your life has energetically forged you in the flames of challenge. There are things that you embody, that you've learned, that you know, that no one else knows in the way that you know. And when you consider the energy and the essence of that divine wisdom, just feel into that for a moment about what it feels like. What is the quality of it? What does it look like? Maybe you're getting visual images, or maybe you're getting bodily sensations or sounds, or just sensing a sweetness, a lightness, an expansiveness. There is a particular kind of essence, a particular kind of light. And when it moves through you and your container of being and the life you've lived and the experiences you've had, and all of the particular ways that you as a person and a being filter that light, there is a voice inside of that. Imagining that you are standing in front of a crowd. That could be just a handful of people, or that could be a few hundred people, whatever feels most expansive and safe to you. They're here because they're here to receive exactly what only you can say. They're actually hungry for it. They actually need it because they can't hear it from anyone else. They can't really grasp it from anyone else. And as you open your mouth, you let go of the judgments, the conclusions, the ideas about what it's supposed to be. You connect with the purity of the healing message that you're here to bring. listening, seeing how it lands, seeing how it's clicking in the minds and the hearts of the people that you're here to serve. How they feel held, how in your authentic expression there is trust and there's a deeper exchange. So, taking another deep breath, sort of wiggling your fingers and toes, just coming back into your body for a minute and staying in this soft place, going to your paper with your pen and just letting the pen flow. It could just be a few words, you could have some sentences about this deeper core message. Or about whatever came to you in this experience. There's insights, there's intelligence. Anytime we decide to tune in, even if we don't have the experience we were hoping to have or we thought we should have. What did you notice? Just taking a few minutes to do some writing there. I'm just wrapping up any final thoughts. So, when we align with this deeper message and we continue to connect to it, we continue to explore the different forms that it wants to come in, the different iterations of specific workshops, of specific programs or support groups or YouTube videos. We continue to align with that core energy and express it, we become magnetic. We connect to our internal resource and spreading our work becomes so much more fulfilling, so much easier to learn the things that are difficult to learn about the technology and the all of that stuff. It becomes less of a drag and it becomes more of an honor. And this is what soulful marketing is about. It's about really developing a really strong place that you're coming from so that people can feel you. And it also means committing yourself to practicing, to not holding your work back and waiting for someone to tell you that it's good enough, not waiting for it to be perfect. Because the only way that you can refine it and hone it is by sharing it. So, this alignment requires releasing ideas about how it has to be or it's not ready yet. You're never going to feel ready. You're never going to feel like it's totally ready. And waiting for things to be ready is a way of stalling, and it's a way of committing to the status quo. It's a way of playing small. And what I know is that when you play small, the essence, the power, the potential, the capacity that wants to move through you, it can't. And that's the life-giving force. That's what makes you feel vital and alive and happy and strong and on purpose and healthy in your body. So there's always honoring your own pace and honoring your own capacity to expand into your visibility and the expression of your work in your own time and doing it mindfully. But I also really encourage you to stop holding back because people really need you. So, just feeling you guys really strongly right now. And I'm really grateful to be able to be here to share this with you. Um, Something that I mentioned earlier was really the need for community and what happens in the absence of having community and having support. It's really difficult, really, really difficult to develop your own sacred body of work on your own. Um, there's so much fear and overwhelm that happens. Our nervous systems are hardwired for safety, and our safety is hardwired to our belongingness and being in a social group where we are understood and where we are validated and valued. So when you start birthing your sacred work into the world that maybe your families don't really get, and maybe people in your immediate environment don't really understand, maybe your husband is kind of like, yes, honey, I love you, but I don't really get it. It's just hard. It's super, super hard. And, on the flip side, like when we have that container of support, when we can incubate, when we can nourish, it makes all the difference. It means that you actually take those scary steps forward that you were unable to do on your own for such a long time. It also means that you get the feedback and the sounding board, the people who can witness you and who can reflect back to you your power in times when you forget it, when you feel disconnected from your own light. And so what I want to invite you all into considering is, if you are someone who feels really focused on your business building this year, who feels really committed, like you're in a place of like, yes, I know this is where I need to put my energy and my time, then I would like to invite you to consider joining one of the upcoming mastermind groups that are starting in a couple of weeks. And what they are essentially places, small groups of 4 people that I'm leading, that I will be teaching and facilitating, where you can receive feedback, sounding board to help you develop your programs, further clarify your message, further align with the deeper purpose, have the courage to bring it forward. This is not a cookie cutter course structure. These are deep, intimate, transformational groups for people who are doing sacred work in the world and know that they can't do it alone. And it does provide a ton of resources and bonus trainings on every aspect of foundational business building, marketing, and skills that you will need, including enrollment and program launching and how to create and deliver workshops, where to find speaking engagements, like all of that practical stuff is all built into it. And it's a really safe and small container where you can get a lot of hand-holding. And one of the beauties that I love about facilitating these groups is we get to go really deep with each other. And there's a lot of cross-learning that happens because they are organized based on the developmental stage that you're at in your business. So you would be in a group of people who are working on similar things. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about it. They are live video calls that we get together and we circle and we mastermind twice a month. You also have access to a private Facebook group. You're given a buddy and someone to reflect back to you for accountability. You have Google document sharing in the group for edits and feedback. So that means that anytime you can upload your content of what you're working on, whether it's your workshop or a program outline, and I will give you feedback and comments on it, and you have that all throughout the month. So it's a really very rich container, and I think it kind of includes the best of both group, like the transformational aspect that can happen in a group teaching environment, but because the groups are so small, you get a lot of one-on-one attention and support. So there's a few spots left in these groups, and there's different levels depending on kind of whether you're just starting to fill your practice, or whether you're really good, you've got a full practice, but you're wanting to move into a deeper expression, a more authentic expression of your brand, and really leverage to working with groups or running retreats. There's different levels. So if this is something that is sort of sparking your interest or your curiosity, I would love to just connect with you more. And for those of you that are kind of on this video training today, I'm offering a $100 off coupon towards your first monthly payment if you sign up and if you join within a week. So, and I'll be having conversations with people. I'm already having conversations with people, but I'll be having more. And if you're interested in chatting with me, I would love to talk with you and just kind of ground in with you about your particular work and what your business is about and where you're trying to go with it, and offer you some guidance, some more specific feedback. And we can kind of talk about the details and see if it would be supportive to you at this time. So if you would like to set up a time to chat with me, you can just email me at support@dabneyalex.com, and my assistant will get back to you and schedule a time, and we'll dive in. We'll just have a conversation about it. I would love to see, if you're resonating with what's been shared so far, and yet you also know you need more support in how to actually implement, how to actually make it fit and work for your unique situation and what you're doing, then I would love to connect more. So I want to end with a couple of more specific tools that you can use. We've talked a lot about a big picture stuff, a lot of mindset shifts around what soulful marketing is. How do we really connect to that deeper message? How do we bring coherence to it? How do we, examples of how to bring the languaging down that will really anchor. And I want to just share a couple of approaches that I integrate into my work and how I approach marketing. And, I'm going to take a minute to brag. I'm not normally a bragger, but the reality is that without the internal alignment, you can do everything right. You can get the Facebook business page, you can do all the marketing stuff right, and things are not going to land properly. And if you have all the internal resonance and you're like, I'm so connected to my message and blah, 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 but it's people can't really connect to it because it's very esoteric and it's very broad and very general, then also shit's not going to land, and you're not going to get the signups, you're not going to get the clients that you want. And I'm the kind of stubborn person that, I have to find ways that work well for me. And my clients are that way too. And so, the work that I do with them is actually helping them to find the strategies and the ways that work best for them so that they can thrive in their work. And, I've put on, dozens of webinars, dozens of workshops, group programs, online programs, 2 telesummits, lists, blah, 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 blah. I've done a lot of marketing and putting myself out there and becoming visible and all that. And I've never had anything fall flat. Maybe once, but I can't really think of any time I've had an intention to create or put an offer out into the world and not received the signups that I wanted, or just didn't have it work. And part of that is because of these 3 tools that I'm going to share with you. So there's a lot more detail, but these are some things that I think are really important. So the first one is, when it comes to marketing, there has to be a willingness to just show up in generosity, And again, like not holding back what you have, your goods, like share them. Let people experience you. And this is the only way that people are going to come to get to know you, going to trust you, and like potentially want to work with you one-on-one, is when you are just looking for ways to generously share. And that's different from being like, where can I promote? You know, that's really different. And you know, because you see people like, where can I promote? Where can I promote? And you're like, ooh, I don't want to do that. So then you're like, well, I guess I'm just not going to let people know about my work. So my suggestion is that you look for the platforms either locally or online. An example is a Facebook group. Find a really engaged Facebook group that you think is awesome, that's doing something really cool, and just be present there. Be present there, connect with the people, share resources when you have them, but just connect with people generously. Because what happens naturally is that if you just show up sharing your gifts, sharing your wisdom, sharing your insights, and not asking for anything back in return, what you will find is that the people who are meant to work with you, who do want to learn more, they will say, hey, you know, I really appreciate you helping me with that. So this is the work you do, huh? And you're like, yeah, that's the work I do. So we can be intentional about sharing, and sharing more generously. Your blogs, your short videos, your inspiration, your content. You know, it requires you to get beyond fear of visibility and perfection and just be like, fuck it. You know what? This is what I have to share. I'm going to share it. It's inspiring and people receive a lot. So like when you give value, you receive back. Now, the caveat to this is that I'm not talking about giving away free sessions, and I'm not talking about having more trades in your business than you have paying clients. I'm just talking about like in small bits and niblets, you know, sharing your free content. And a Facebook group is a great place to do that. Just simply connecting with people. The next tool is to cultivate connection yet again, but really when I break it down, it's really about reaching out to the people that you have connected to where there has been energy in the past, whether this is a colleague or a peer that you met somewhere, someone maybe you networked with, and just write an email to them. Hey, how are you? How was your summer? What's going on with you? Like, this is, you know, when I first shared about why I love marketing, I said marketing is about cultivating relationships, and it's about education. It's about sharing what you know. And, you know, the whole premise for this call was, how can you share your work more authentically in a way that feels really good and that's also really effective? So sharing generosity, sharing your content, sharing what you know, just connecting with people, that kind of is educational marketing. It means like showing up freely to be in service and help out. And when the people who you help are like, wow, that was really helpful. Wow, I really got a lot out of that. You know, that's when you have the opportunity to be like, hey, well, I also have this thing. You know, I also have this mastermind group starting if that's something you need, you know, but you can just show up in generosity. Reach out to the people you've connected to in the past. Follow up with them. See how they're doing. Ask them how you can support them. Write them an email. You know, you can write one email today, one to a potential or a past client, somebody that resonated with your work in the past that you maybe worked with, and just check in with them. You know, it's not, I think when it comes from a genuine place, people really appreciate it. So that's the second tool. And the third tool is to follow the energy. So I've had in my mind a few different things I maybe wanted to create this fall, and I was kind of feeling pulled by this one, and I was kind of, but the thing that I've ended up developing and sharing is the thing that has the most energy for me. So the thing that, like, when I think about it, I'm like, ooh, yeah, this is really exciting. And so that's what I invite you to take a moment, take some time this afternoon or tomorrow, and just consider, like, where is there the most energy for me right now? And that's the thing that you need to be giving your time to, giving your presence to, and really developing some context around so that you can share it. Because when you have a lot of energy around something, other people feel that energy. And when they feel that energy, they get like a transmission from you. And when they get that transmission, it's like, oh, that feels good. I want more. I want to experience more of that. So those are my 3 tips that you can use to kind of implement this week to kind of help shift things and come into a greater flow, activate and create some more energy in your business and your practice. So just to give like a quick recap, I know we've gone a couple minutes over, but community, ultra important, super important. Energetic alignment, super important. Getting resonant, getting connected, getting deep with what that message is and transcending the modalities and really looking at who has my life caused me to be and what am I here to say. And that's not something that you might just know right away, or maybe you know it, but then you forget it, or maybe you don't know it. But the point is that we don't learn that through isolation. And we don't learn that by holding our work preciously close to our hearts. We come into clarity and courage and confidence when we share with other people, when we get into discussion, we share in relationship and we get that reflection, we get that feedback, and that's when we come into clarity. And when we're in a place of clarity, we're able to express concretely what we do, what we're here to do, why we're doing it, what it's about, what people stand to gain from it. That's when people get it. That's when people see the value in it. And that's when it makes it much easier for people to say yes to working with you. And it also makes it feel much better to you when you share it. So that's my message for you. And if you're looking at, wanting to step into a more in-depth, kind of personalized and engaged, supportive container, I would love to connect with you more. And you can reach out at support@dabneyalex.com, and I can go over more of the details and go over the tuition and stuff. It's actually really affordable compared to a lot of group programs and things that are out there. So don't be ticket shy. I would love to just connect with you and see if it's something that you're needing and make it possible for you. Okay. Well, I'm really grateful to you all, and thank you for being here. And hopefully I'll get to connect with some of you soon.